Monday, February 12th. Oh, a pretty pink envelope. Terry leaned over to Vernon and squeezed his shoulders with her hands. It's probably a Valentine, right? So we have a secret admirer, Vern. I think it might be Terry, don't you? Vernon stammered, turning the unopened object over in his hands as if it were a parcel bomb. I thought it was some kind of birthday card, but my birthday isn't for another month. It clearly says to Vernon Harrison on the front and is double underlined, so it's definitely for you, Vern. He had only been introduced to Terry last week, Wednesday or Thursday. He didn't know exactly, so he barely knew her, but she seemed very familiar. No one calls me Vern, he thought. I must be the boss, though it sounded strange even to himself. He'd worked in this office as a handyman for over 20 years and had only been in charge for a year and a half when Vernon Harrison was promoted to chief scheduler. Terry was the latest temporary employee in Barton Valley Borough Council's planning department. They were so short of qualified planners that they usually had at least 3 temporary staff working part-time, doing most of the non-technical but still necessary work to keep the wheels turning, such as sending out standard letters to applicants, borough residents, and professionals that varied depending on the planning application. The Human Resources Department, under the direction of the fierce and formidable Mrs. Hilda Brankstone, was picking up temporary staff whose numbers were constantly changing. Terry, he thought, unable to remember her middle name, must be a mother with a young child or children at school because she only worked from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday to Friday. He guessed she was in her early 20s, meaning she was almost half his age. She was young enough to be his daughter, although his twin girls were in their early 20s, and they attended 2 different universities, Bristol and Newcastle, which meant that there was a lot of driving involved, picking them up and dropping them off at the beginning and end of term. This job had started the previous October, and he knew that for the next 3 years, it would depend mainly on him rather than his busy wife, Denise, who was currently mayor of Barton Valley Borough. Terry was very attractive, Vernon thought, of medium height. It looks like it's handwritten, Vernon muttered, but I don't recognize the handwriting. That's what confused me at first, Terry, because I thought, who would send me a birthday card at this time of year? My birthday is at the end of March. Easter is 6 or 7 weeks away, and our wedding anniversary is in June. I didn't even think it could be a Valentine's Day card. I don't think it's handwritten. Really? Vernon pulled it closer and took off his reading glasses. I can't figure it out. It's blue ink, not black. Of course, Vern, it's printed on our color printer, she patiently assured him. The letter 5 is exactly the same as in Vicky's signature. I recognized it because she's the only one who uses that font, and I really liked the T in Vicky's last name. I decided that if I ever have to send and sign my emails, I will use this font. I think it's called Shelley. Vernon seemed to brighten up and thought, phew, the postcard might be from Denise after all. Not that I was expecting it. I could use a minimum of complications in my life right now. I think I should get her a card. Go ahead, Terry said, opening it. I want to see what she writes. She? It would be a great loss to us girls if a handsome guy like you only got Valentines from guys. I'm a married man, he insisted, freeing his left hand to show her the ring. Happily married, he added for emphasis. Good. Now open this card, mister. We can't do that, can we? Vernon grinned. We can't? She asked quietly. Her smile faded, her eyebrows raised. Then she smiled again, her eyes crinkling as her deep smiles always seemed to encompass her whole face, and he remarked, No, it's not game time yet, is it, Vern? And she laughed, a deep, throaty laugh that made Vernon think that playtime for her boyfriend or husband must be a constant source of joy, while he couldn't remember the last joy of play he'd had at home. Oh, yes, he could. It was around midnight on Christmas Eve. But Vernon and Denise's life both then and since had been hectic. For him, it was the development of the local plan. For Denise, it was the council budget and setting the annual council tax. And for Denise, as mayor of Borough, it was a busy period. He turned the envelope over and, running his index finger along the folded edge, found a card sealed in red ink in the shape of a large heart surrounded by tiny roses strung on ribbons. He pulled it from the envelope. Happy Valentine's Day, Terry read over his shoulder. Oh, that big red heart takes up the whole card, and there are red ribbons and roses all around it. It's a beautiful card, isn't it, Vern? Yes, Vernon agreed. A little girly, though. Nonsense, Vern. You pretty boys are so insensitive when it comes to things like that. It looks romantic to me, like admitting that you've got a big heart and some greedy girl wants to grab a big piece of it, or any piece she can get, I guess. Vernon looked at her. Her face was almost too close for a married man. She was right in his personal space. When she said the last phrase, it sounded the way he thought a vampiress should sound, but when he turned and looked at the girl, her face was open, with an innocent, girlish smile and soft eyes. I bet she can go from vampire to cute neighborhood girl and back again in an instant, he thought. When they exchanged glances, she asked, "Oh, Vern, did you just get a haircut?" "Yeah, on Saturday." "I thought so. The hair on the back of my neck has taken on that irresistible texture of short stubble that girls like so much." "Open the card, Vern. I want to read what she wrote," she requested. He returned his gaze to the card, opened it, and saw a row of 4 red hearts cut out and stapled together, with I at the top of the card, U below the hearts, and the letters LOVE divided across the 4 hearts. "It's not signed," she remarked, "but after all, you can't put a card with a cutout inscription through a printer. Look on the back, Vern." Vernon turned the page. On the back were 3 large crosses, obviously made with a ballpoint pen, and the indentations in the thick card were immediately apparent when it was held up at an angle to the light. "There's no way I can tell from those crosses who sent it," said Vernon. "Most likely it's your wife," Terry suggested. "Almost certainly. What did you get her for Valentine's Day?" "I didn't buy her any cards or gifts until," he stammered. "We don't celebrate Valentine's Day anymore." No, he thought, they haven't celebrated Valentine's Day in years. "Better hurry up, Vern, unless you want to rock the boat back home. It's Monday. And Valentine's Day is this Wednesday, you know that?" "Well, I know now. Anyway, off to work you go." "Oh, sir," Terry chuckled, letting go of his shoulder and stepping aside. "When I came in for my interview, HR didn't tell me anything about a special incentive system for employees in your department." She sat down at a desk 2 rows away from Vernon's desk, and they both looked at each other, smiling. At the desk across from the open plan office, Mrs. Vicky Talbot and Miss Julie Kavanaugh were watching with interest. "Vernon and the new girl, what a twist in the book," Julie commented. "She's a smart girl, that Terry. Only 2 days here, and already she's realized that Vernon's bitch wife is openly having fun with that creep Harry Cox. Denise wants to keep her affair a secret while it lasts. Terry seems to know what's going on and offers to pick up the pieces for him when he finally finds out. For an old man, he's in good shape. He's a member of the rowing club, races on the river bar on Sundays. Is the new girl single, married, or living apart? Do you know?" "I found out directly from her on Friday at the ladies. She's a single mom, dresses up and wears a fake wedding ring to fight off men at work. She has been working on a temporary basis for years and has learned well how to avoid wolves," she said. "Vernon Harrison is not a wolf." "Well, yeah. He's a sweetheart, and he really needs to throw his mare wife out where the sun don't shine. That Terry is really sweet once you get to know her better, and she's so pretty. She lives with her mom, and she has a home gym," Vicky whispered, nodding. "She has a baby at home, so she gets up a couple hours early, exercises and showers before getting the baby up, fed, dressed, and off to school. She's too young for Vernon, Vic. She's only about 22. She must be about 30 or a little less, Jules. Her kid is 9 years old. He's in 4th grade, same year as my youngest." "She's pretty," Julie sighed. "Yeah, poor cutie. He doesn't even realize he's being played with by women on both sides." "Well, he's not my type, Vic. Too old and quiet. But he's a very nice guy. Too nice for anyone to tell him that his bitch wife has been tooting his horn for months now." "Yes, he's bound to find out someday. But after 20-odd years of living with his wife and their twin girls, breaking up with them would break the poor guy's heart." As Vernon drove home after work, he checked the yellow note he had taped to the steering wheel to remind himself to buy a card for Denise for Valentine's Day. He tried to remember the last time they'd exchanged cards at Cupid's Feast, but decided it had been several years ago. The corner store next to the house was still open when he pulled up there, and he checked to see if they had any cards. There wasn't much choice. Even the most expensive postcards weren't as beautiful as the one he got. He bought one of the more expensive ones just in case, but decided to buy a nicer one on Tuesday in town, where there were several specialty postcard stores downtown. He had to heat up the food left in the refrigerator in the microwave because Denise, as borough mayor, was scheduled to preside over the late evening council meeting and had left a note magnetically attached to the refrigerator door. Even though the meeting was an emergency, Vernon knew it had been on the council calendar since last Friday. As he relaxed and ate the tasteless food, he was reminded of the Valentine and his conversation with Terry Jones. Now he finally remembered her last name. She had only started working as a temporary employee for 20 hours a week in the middle of last week. Since the planning department needed to prepare a local plan containing policies and housing requirements for the next decade in the coming months, all the full-time staff were stretched to the limit, and finding trained planners willing to work full-time was difficult. So the department's budget for the last couple of years and the next 6 months included 60 hours a week of additional temporary staff to bring it down to zero by the end of the next fiscal year. Terry was given the administrative work, updating planning applications, sending standard responses, various email consultations, etc. She turned out to be excellent on the computer and very easygoing. Denise came in through the kitchen door quite late, about 11:15, and after greeting Vernon, who had come out of the living room to greet her, took off her 3-inch heeled shoes. I've been wanting to take these damn shoes off for a long time, Denise smirked. I've worn them for 14 hours straight, and they've been killing me since the second hour. You want to rub them on, honey? Vernon followed her as she ran down the hall. Oh, that's nice, but I need a shower right away. I really stink, and my feet must stink even worse after such a long day. And I'm desperately tired. She just rushed up the stairs to the bathroom to take a shower. Do you want me to fix you something to eat and drink? Vernon offered, coming up the stairs. No, dear, she retorted as she descended the stairs. We bought some sandwiches for an emergency budget cabinet meeting, and after the meeting I had a quick G&T at the Jolly Postman with most of the cabinet members. Tuesday, Feb. 13. In the morning on his desk, this time just after coming in about 10 to 9, Vernon found one invitation card in an envelope and a second Valentine. The invitation card was for a Saturday night Valentine's Day dinner at a large and expensive hotel on the outskirts of the town, a Grade 1 listed building, and a black tie event. That meant he needed to rent a tuxedo, which he did as soon as he logged onto the computer, as he'd already had to do several times in the 9 months since Denise had become mayor. Terry smiled as she entered the department 10 minutes before work started. Placing her bag on the desk, she looked at Vernon expectantly, raising her eyebrows questioningly and smiling her usual smile. Vernon relaxed, smiled, and waved at her. He was sure she had skipped all the way to his desk. As she approached, he pulled an envelope from a drawer. He placed it on top of the first one he received yesterday. Oh, another card, she purred, placing her hand on his shoulder and leaning toward him, her fresh light scent playing in his nostrils. What do you think, Vern? Is this a new Valentine, honey exciting, or the same suitor strengthening her claim on your heart? I think it's the same one again. The same font on the envelope as before, and the same 3 crosses handwritten on the last page. Yeah, I agree. Too much of a coincidence for 2 different girls to choose the same font. Maybe someone saw yesterday's envelope and decided to make it more mysterious. What did your wife say when you mentioned receiving the card? To be honest, by the time she got home from the meeting, I had already forgotten about it. And if she sent it herself, she didn't mention it or even hint at it. I hear she's a busy woman, your wife being the mayor and all. How do you feel about her being the boss? I don't have a problem with it. I supported her in every election. She's been a respected member of the parish council for 15 years, and for 11 years she's been a force to be reckoned with in the borough. She's a good counselor and has earned her success in the top job. Not too busy to send you a card or two, Vern. You ought to say something to her, especially now that you have 2 postcards. If she sent them, you don't want her to think you got them a little on the side, do you? Even if she didn't send them, just her knowing that you have someone or more women who are in love with you will add a little jealousy to spur your wife's libido. Maybe you'll have even better luck at home than you do now, Vern. Or perhaps you really do have a mysterious secret admirer, Vern. How interesting. So you find infidelity a turn-on, Terry? She looked shocked. No, not at all. I never have. I just think Valentines are harmless fun that shouldn't be taken seriously. When we were kids, we used to get dozens of cards and candy, and none of it meant anything. Maybe someone was embarrassed to say something, but for us girls, it was a nice self-esteem boost, nothing more. In those days, though, I kept all mine. One guy wrote a beautiful poem in a card. But I never found out who he was, and when we graduated and I came home, he just stopped sending them. I bet you still remember all your postcards, don't you, Vern? No, I didn't get any. What, not one? From a handsome guy who's also as nice as you? Of course not. No, not in high school. Not in college. Not until I started courting Denise when I was 24. And yes, I wrote little poems in those first half dozen cards. You see, I knew you were a romantic at heart. Is there any poetry in this card? No, but he opened the card and out fell a ticket to a Valentine's Day dinner. It's a ticket for one person only. I've seen the commercials for this ball. Tickets are very expensive, and it's a full-fledged black tie event with a live swing band. There have been posters hanging all over the city for months, and it's not a simple buffet, it's a real three-course buffet with wine. You do realize what that means, don't you, Vern? No, just that I had to order a rental tuxedo this morning? No. Other than that, Vern, look, it's a real sit-down dinner, which means you'll be sitting next to your favorite Valentine on Saturday night. Right. Now, if I'm going to be sitting next to this ancient Dowager Duchess, studded with pearls and family jewels that will become mine, along with the family patrimony when she disembarks 2 weeks after our honeymoon, I'd better not squeeze her thigh while… Yeah, until you check to see who's sitting on the other side of you, Vern. It could be your Mrs. Harrison, or it could be one of your employees secretly lusting after your body. They looked around the room. So Vicky is 32. She's happily married to Darren and has 2 kids, so it's not her. Terry counted down. Julie is only 23. She's engaged to roofer Jason, and they're getting married in April, I think. Carrie is 28. She married her second husband only last year, and he has brought his 12-year-old son into their lives, with whom he is with every weekend, and joined her preschool daughter. Carrie's ex lives in London, so he only comes once a month, picks up her daughter for a Saturday, and returns home in the evening. As for Larry, he's in his 30s, but is solidly built, married, and has 3 young children. The other 2 temps are Linda 50, though she looks 35. She's happily married and has 2 grown daughters. And finally, Larissa is 19. She's a Syrian refugee, engaged to Aldayub, whom she fell in love with in a refugee camp in Italy, and is studying to be a doctor here. Holy shit, you know all this and you've been here less than a week? I like people, Vern. I do my job, but I like meeting new people. I talk to them and, well, they like to tell me about themselves. Ah, for a moment I thought you were just curious, he grinned, warding off the unintentional barbs, hoping she would take his soft hint as a joke. She laughed. See, I told HR you couldn't be as stuffed as people say you are. Really? No, I'm kidding. They didn't say anything about you at all. They just said Vicky would be the one to show me the way because you'd be too busy with your job. Quite often, in temporary jobs in the city, I find that I'm not allowed anywhere near the head of the department, only my immediate supervisor. She smiled. The boss is usually in a separate office, like the conference room in the corner. Vernon grinned. It used to be the boss's office, but when I took over the office, I didn't want to be cut off from our small team, so we hold meetings there. One-on-one meetings, staff evaluations, etc. So you're a hands-on boss, huh, boss? She squeezed Vernon's shoulder, released her grip, and began to move around the desk. At least I'm handy and within reach, he replied with a smile. Don't forget a card for your wife, Denise, eh? Birthday tomorrow, don't forget. I'll bring it over at lunchtime, he assured her. After lunch, he texted Denise and thanked her for sending him 2 Valentines and an invitation. When he got home, he mentioned the single dinner invitation to Denise again and attached the ticket with a magnet to the refrigerator door. Denise stopped stirring and looked at the ticket. Why only 1 ticket, dear? That clearly says only 1 allowed. I was hoping you'd answer that question, dear. I wrote you today to let you know that I received a Valentine's Day card yesterday and an invitation and card today, but you didn't respond in any way. I've decided that you are my only romantic suitor and that this single ticket is just another little tease on your part. Honestly, honey, I didn't get a card from you yesterday and I definitely didn't get a ticket today. And I mean definitely. In fact, I'll be really pissed if you decide to use it this Saturday. You know I'm off to London for a course on Friday and Saturday night. She went back to the pan and stirred it hard enough to get the Teflon coating off. So who's the card-throwing whore? She hissed through clenched teeth. I have no idea. I was talking to one of the girls. Girls? One of the temps. She saw the cards and, well, she got curious. More like curious. Well, she's a woman. I thought you said she was a girl. She snapped back. Well, compared to some of the others in the office, yeah, she's just a girl. Just a few years older than our girls, I guess. After a frosty dinner, Vernon looked on the internet to see if he could buy another ticket to the ball, just in case Denise decided to withdraw from the London course. The website thanked him for his inquiry, but all tickets had sold out as recently as last week. All in all, the evening and night continued to be pretty frosty, and all because of two anonymous Valentine's Day cards that separated a couple who had been married for over 21 years. Wednesday, February 14th. Vernon left for work early in the morning, but not before leaving a Valentine's Day card on the kitchen table near the coffee pot he had already prepared for his wife. He took his tea with him in a thermos mug, which he preferred to brew in the morning. When he arrived, there were no employees in the planning department office. However, on the desk he found an elegant arrangement of flowers and a pastel-colored envelope, obviously containing a Valentine card, which he opened with trembling hands. The envelope was again sealed in handwritten script, and the card contained a romantic verse and the customary 3 crosses on the back. So whoever had left him those messages must have stopped by the office on Tuesday night. It hadn't been Denise. She'd been home all evening. Perhaps, he thought, it wasn't just one person but a conspiracy. But why leave 3 postcards in a row? He wondered. He laughed to himself. A conspiracy by all the girls in the office couldn't be worse than stalking one person. I mean, he said almost aloud, in the silence of the office, I'm an ordinary guy of 40. In my prime, I didn't even attract attention. And now I'm a middle-aged man with 2 kids in college, an intelligent and attractive wife, and an established lifestyle. The flowers made him think, and he ordered a bouquet of flowers to pick up during lunch and take home in the evening. There were no mayoral events today, which was another reason he'd let Denise rest. But he didn't want to risk sending a bouquet with home delivery in case she went shopping or something on her free days. When he returned home, he found that his wife had left him a signed Valentine and a note hanging on the refrigerator saying that she had gone to another meeting related to the neighborhood plan for their area, a regular monthly meeting that Vernon was well aware of. And Denise had left a meal for him that she had cooked in the microwave during the day. He was still wondering if the other cards were from Denise or someone else, because the card she'd left him was very similar to the cheap one he'd bought on Monday at the corner store and rejected as too unsightly compared to the one he'd gotten on Monday. The one he'd left Wednesday for Denise to find was of much better quality than this one. Exhausted from working on the local plan all week and lonely thoughts, he put the flowers in a vase and went to bed before Denise got home, and was up early again before she got up. Thursday, February 15th. Another Valentine on my desk. This one had the message printed on it. Valentine's Day wasn't over until the Valentine's Ball on Saturday. Embedded in the card was a printout on branded paper from the swanky hotel where the ball was held. It was a confirmation of a suite reservation for Saturday night. There was no price on it, it was crossed out, but there was a rubber stamp indicating that the suite had been paid for in full in cash. The card lay on top of a gift paper-wrapped parcel that contained 3 silk boxer briefs. He never wore boxers, always went with briefs and saw no reason to change them. The printed note to the briefs said to wear one and bring the other 2 with him, one for Sunday morning and a spare just in case. Oh shit, what's going on? He said aloud to the empty office. This is getting really scary. All week Terry had been interested in his cards, his comments on them, and his gifts. Today was no exception. She smirked when she saw the note for a hotel room reservation. That's definitely the landlady, Vern. Looks like she's going to make sure you're lucky this weekend. Vernon decided not to say anything to her about Denise being away this weekend on a course that was of interest to members and permanent staff alike. Even Vernon had been informed of the new data recording regulations that would come into effect in a couple of months. It was important to the mayor, who was responsible for the council's performance in the public eye, that she had a stricter understanding of the new law, and Denise had told him about her participation in the course over a month ago. So he was sure that the sender of the Valentine, whoever it was not Denise, his loving wife. Everyone else in the office was very busy that day, as Vernon insisted that no one in the department work overtime. Work was allocated on an as-needed basis to ensure that statutory deadlines and planning application procedures were strictly adhered to. and that other planning matters were dealt with within a reasonable time frame. This is why temporary staff such as Terry were hired, as the workload of preparing the local plan threatened to jeopardize day-to-day operations. Back home, Vernon found another note on the refrigerator door about cooking dinner in the microwave. It said that Denise had to leave early again for an unscheduled meeting with developers who were giving a presentation on a potential new apartment complex, so she'd left dinner for him and hadn't come home to share it with him. Screw it! He shouted into the ether and decided to have dinner at the pub, a few mugs of ale and then brandy, or rather, a few brandies. When he got home, Denise was already asleep in bed. He put the coffee on and made himself drink 2 cups and a pint of water before going to bed. That didn't stop him from feeling a slight headache in the morning. Friday, February 16th. By the time Vernon got up and showered, Denise was already up and dressed. He couldn't stay late or take a sick day at work today. The head of the council had scheduled a meeting for 9 in the morning for all department heads, and Vernon was to attend to brief those present on the final version of the local plan, which was due to be submitted to the council in 3 weeks. After this briefing, he met regularly, every 2 weeks, with the chairman of the planning committee, Councillor Mrs. Cynthia Springett, to discuss any new planning applications that particularly needed to be discussed and acted upon by councillors. Most planning applications that were not controversial were referred to officers for consideration in accordance with policy set out by law or by borough council. It usually took him a few hours to go through all the plans and prepare an agenda for a meeting in 10 days' time. Denise was due to meet with the chief executive late in the morning, take the train to London, and attend a seminar on Saturday about the new data retention rules that were due to come into force in the next 2 months. She needed to stay overnight on Friday and Saturday, and on Friday afternoon she wanted to go shopping in the West End. So Vernon drove her to the council offices at 9 a.m. Since they were running a little late, Vernon had to go straight to the small committee room for a briefing of department heads, which Denise attended as an observer, saving time for the next meeting. Once the meeting was over, Chief of Staff Matt Jones, his deputy Mrs. Janice Merton, council leader, Councillor Bob Roberts, and the mayor, Councillor Mrs. Denise Harrison, retired to the Chief of Staff's office to discuss the upcoming Monday night monthly meeting of the full Borough Council. When Vernon reached his desk, another Valentine was waiting for him. It was an orange-red envelope, definitely not a business manila envelope or the usual white envelope that mail was usually brought to the office in. Terry stood nearby and waited until the meeting was over to see what the card said. "Hey Vern, good meeting?" she asked, timing it so that she could meet him at his desk as soon as he returned. Same old, he muttered, hesitating before sitting down. "I suppose you want to see me open my new card?" "Of course, I checked your desk as soon as I walked in," she laughed. "If we still had kettles in the kitchen instead of hot tap water, I'd consider opening it on steam to observe." "Okay, I'll put you out of your misery," Vernon grinned. The postcard he opened was different from the others in that it was less flowery. The cover showed champagne chilling in a bucket, filled flutes, bubbles, ribbons, and bows, but it was as good a card as the others. Someone, Vernon thought, had carefully and well selected these postcards. There were no pop-ups inside the card, so the message was printed on it in the same font. "I hope you're looking forward to Saturday's Valentine's Ball as much as I am, and don't tell the cat's wife about it. I'm sure she'll let the mice play while the cat's away." The envelope also contained a voucher from a fancy men's barber boutique where you could sign up for styling, shaving, body massages, manicures, and pedicures all day Saturday. "Oh, that's cheeky, Vern," Terry commented. "You'll get a nice treat, and your secret Valentine will get the pleasure of a nice clean-shaven and relaxed man with no sharp toenails to knock her out. Vern, you have to go on Saturday to find out what kind of caring angel this is, don't you?" "No, I mustn't go, Terry," replied Vernon. "Don't forget I'm a married man." "Never." "Then take your wife with you and let her have all the advantages of the ball, and the bedroom, and everything you can think of for her afterward." "I only have one ticket." "Then go online and buy another. It's probably too late to get it in the mail, but you can have them drop it off at the hotel front desk so you can pick it up." "No, they've been sold out for a while. I looked online Tuesday night." "Then take it with you. Arrive early. Get your room key as soon as you arrive and leave your wife in the room to shower. Order her own food and a bottle of bubbly and wait for your return. She'll love it, especially if you can laugh at exactly who put you up to it. And you'll be able to enjoy it at the expense of your secret admirer for, as the letter says, It was all paid for in advance. No, that's not possible. Denise is away on a course in London this weekend and won't be back until Sunday afternoon. Hmm, I wonder, Terry said, lowering her husky voice to a breathy whisper. Maybe this course she's supposed to be going to isn't really a course and she's planning to surprise you by showing up at the ball and rocking your socks all night long, Vern. Vernon decided the best way to end the awkwardness was to say, I'll think about whether I should go tonight, and sent Terry off to do her chores. 20 minutes later, Denise called Vernon's cell phone to let him know she was ready and went to the front desk. He drove her to the train station, informing her that he had received another Valentine, as well as a voucher for a haircut. You don't need a haircut, hun. You only got a haircut last week, she remarked. Yeah, I had a regular short haircut on the back and sides, but it's the complete package, at least as far as a guy can go, he replied. Well, it didn't say anything about waxing. Just don't do anything I wouldn't do, honey, she grinned as she left the passenger seat at the train station, clutching her overnight bag in her hands. Vernon returned to work, but his head was too clogged with thoughts of this mysterious series of Valentine's Day cards to work fully at his desk. He went to a construction site in the middle of the day, which helped him feel useful and clear his head. But instead of returning to the office, he finished work an hour early. When he returned home to a cold and dark empty house, he found a note on the doormat from the delivery service saying that the neighbors had picked up his package. He knocked on old Mrs. Matthews' door and she handed him a long padded package that clearly contained the DJ he had hired for tomorrow. He unpacked it and hung it up to air in the bedroom. The London train carriage was deserted on a Friday when it was almost lunchtime, so Denise placed the package on the seat beside her rather than lifting it onto the counter. As soon as she sat down and took the clipboard out of her bag, the train touched down and soon picked up speed. It was an express train, and there were only half a dozen stops along the way. It wasn't until she exhaled, relaxed, and was about to open the ebook to the page with her favorite author's latest novel that she realized that not only had Vernon not kissed her as she exited the carriage, but he himself had made no move to lean over to the driver and kiss him goodbye. They just seemed to take each other for granted. That brought her to her senses, and she put the clipboard aside. Honestly, she couldn't remember the last time they had kissed, broken up, or greeted each other with even a simple good morning wish. Even though they'd been together for 22 years and married for over 21, they'd once always kissed morning and evening, but lately they, or only she, had let that affection slip unnoticed, until now. She realized that she had been so absorbed in her affair over the past few months that it was her own fault for ignoring her husband. And now she'd gone off for 2 whole days and nights of fun with her lover, leaving her husband in the hands of some temptress claiming him. Okay, she thought. The course on the new European data processing laws coming into force in May was just a 2-hour briefing and really just a ploy to spend the night with Harry's lover, to which Harry had persuaded her to add Friday night on the pretext of being able to go shopping in the West End on Friday afternoon and evening. The train ride was actually a double setup, because she couldn't be seen driving Harry's car in London, and since she couldn't carry much stuff home, she had already taken the precaution of ordering a dozen things online, from 6 different national chains with stores in the West End to be delivered on Monday so that she and Harry could do it Friday afternoon and Saturday evening. She tried to remember the last time she had done this with her husband. It took a few minutes to think about it, but she was sure it had been on Christmas Eve and her husband had been the initiator. He had been the initiator the previous couple of times she had turned him down as well. And that time, in fact, she felt she couldn't say no. The girls had gone to a party at a friend's house, and for the first time in days, the couple had been alone together when she was neither in a real meeting nor a pretend one where she was actually having fun with Harry Cox. It wasn't that she didn't love Vernon anymore. He was still the same sweet and loving man he had always been and had remained throughout their 22 years together. Vernon was sweet and wonderful. He made her feel rested, fed, and loved. Now she was on her way to the hotel room. Not for the first time, Denise wondered if she was jeopardizing her future and if this affair was really worth it. Once Vernon finished working on the local plan, and the end of that project was just around the corner, perhaps she should reestablish a relationship with the love of her life. She loved Vernon. At least she thought she did, and when the affair with Cox was over, she knew Harry would replace her with a younger model, and she would happily return to Vernon. She had no illusions about what sort of man Harry Cox was. He was a property developer and a particularly unsympathetic landlord, a big fish in a small pond, often embattled by the council's planning and standards committees. Most of the homeless in the borough who slept on the streets were his former tenants. Dio, till now, she realized, she believed that the liaisons with Harry Cox were just an extra distraction, that she was still giving Vernon the marital rights he deserved and was still interested in marriage. Apparently, she realized that she had seriously neglected her husband, and now he was being pursued by some rival bitch with those damned Valentines and the Valentine's Ball. Maybe, she thought, this weekend should be the finale, and today or tomorrow, she could tell Harry that on Sunday it would be over between them, and she could concentrate on picking up the remnants of her marriage before she lost Vernon for good. At that moment, the phone rang. Judging by the caller ID, it was Harry, though her phone listed him as Counselor 1, in case Vernon ever saw him. "What the hell does he want?" she said aloud. She pressed the green button. "What do you want?" She snapped back. "Hey, sweetie, did you get caught at a bad time?" "I'm sorry, yeah. I had a few meetings this morning and, well, to be honest, I'm worried about Vernon and those damn Valentines he's been getting." "Oh, those. Yeah, I remember you said he got one the other day. Whoopee, do it for Vernon. Someone must be desperate enough to send that wuss a Valentine." "He's not a wuss." "No? Then why are you entertaining me and not this wuss?" Denise was suddenly angry. "Yeah, why me?" "Because you're a Class A and I'm the alpha male. Listen, honey, I hear you're on your way on the train. I'm just entering the traffic zone, so I'll be at the hotel about the time you get to London. I'll unpack and order coffee and snacks while you get the subway, okay?" "Yeah, okay," she sighed. "I'll see you in about 3/4 of an hour then." Denise checked in and got a second key card, then took the elevator to the top floor of the hotel. As she entered the room, she heard her lover's raised voice talking on the phone in the living room of the suite where she had placed her overnight bag. And then he threw the phone violently against the hotel wall, scattering pieces of plastic across the floor. "What's going on?" she asked, putting a hand on his shoulder to keep him from stepping on the debris. He was barefoot, in his robe, probably already showered and undressed, waiting for her to arrive. He turned to her, purple with rage. "It was your feisty husband who made me spend thousands on the nursing home I'm building on Osborne Road." "He did what?" "He inspected the site this afternoon to sign the foundation papers, and after looking at the excavated earth, he decided we hadn't buried the foundation deep enough." "Really?" "Well, the standards are too strict, so sometimes we cut corners. Larry in the planning department and his previous boss usually just sign them off in exchange for a favor or two." "Oh no, you didn't do that?" "Maybe I did, but I leave it up to the foreman to work from the plans and adapt them as needed. Anyway, Vernon had my foreman dig a section, and it was 4 inches below the minimum. So I'm going to have to dig it all out, go down another 6 inches, and pour fresh soil and fresh concrete." "Can't you just add another 6 inches of concrete on top since it's all underground?" "No, I'm trying to squeeze 4 stories into a neighborhood with height restrictions. I already have minimum ceiling heights in the apartments, and you can barely stand up on the roof where the water and central heating tanks are stored. I'll either have to dig out the foundation again or lose 6 top-floor apartments with magical valley views at 300 grand apiece." But Vernon almost never does the inspections. Most of the time he sends Larry. I think he just wanted to get out of the office. I'd walk into the office on a quiet morning like yesterday, and he was surrounded by office girls looking at his Valentines. He even had flowers on his desk, pansies. I wouldn't be surprised. He was probably pissed off about not getting any at home and went out for some air. I was just lucky he peed on my construction site. Do you think he knows about us or that anyone in the office knows?" "Of course not. We've been very careful." "Since you're here, let's make this quick and then we'll go and have tea." Saturday, February 17th morning. Denise was out of town until Sunday afternoon, so Vernon got up alone when the mail arrived about 9 o'clock in the morning. There was the 6th Valentine, again written in block letters, "See you tonight, love. P.S. I have reserved a honeymoon suite for us for our first time together." For a moment, he wondered if Denise was trying to spice up their married life and decided to leave. Maybe this strange day off was just a ruse. After making tea and a light breakfast of toast and marmalade, he checked emails and downloads on his smartphone and assured himself that everything in the world was as he expected. There wasn't an ounce of surprise on his face, only disappointment. Before getting dressed, he tried on the jacket and pants he'd gotten yesterday. The suit fit so well it was probably the same one he'd hired earlier. Denise had offered to make him her own. especially since she was going to be mayor for at least 2 years. And there were enough events going on in town to include an outfit for the mayor's wife in the mayor's expense budget, but Vernon had insisted that he wasn't a fan of evening gowns. Saturday, February 17th afternoon. After a light lunch at the Bear Pub, he headed down the high street to cut above the rest gentleman's hairdressing emporium to pamper himself within his means. Although he'd had his hair cut at Barry's salon the week before for just £10, after a relaxing massage and nail clipping, he still managed to find hair to cut. The shave he anticipated with some trepidation, but by the time they got down to it, he was deeply relaxed, and they could do whatever they wanted to him without a murmur of protest. When he came out of the store a couple hours later, he smelled of bay rum, and he felt so good that he thought he could fight the whole world. So, striding determinedly toward the multi-story parking garage, he came home, changed into his new silk boxers, white shirt, bow tie, and DJ pullover, packed his overnight bag, grabbed his ticket and reservation from the refrigerator door, and drove to the hotel. The honeymoon suite had an old-fashioned four-post bed and, he noticed, a shower designed for two. He sat down on the bed, feeling suddenly tired. There were still 4 hours until the ball began. He carefully hung up his suit, shirt, and tie. Climbing under the covers, he set his alarm clock for 3 o'clock. He must have still been completely relaxed from the massage because he fell into a deep sleep a few minutes later. Saturday, February 17th evening. When Vernon's alarm clock pierced his consciousness, he was in the midst of sleep. He followed the sound of the alarm clock, hampered by the fabric around the four-post bed, somehow closed while he slept. It took a moment to find a gap in the curtain before he pushed it aside and fumbled for the phone on the bedside table to turn off the alarm clock. He was shocked to find that he had slept for a full hour and must have slept through all the repeated alarms, muffled by the curtains in deep sleep. The bedside lamp on the opposite side of the bed had been left on. A trip to the bathroom had helped to unclog his eyes and he could see more clearly. Several feminine products magically appeared on the bathroom shelf. The bedroom closet revealed a change of women's clothing, but it gave Vernon no hint of his new partner. It certainly wasn't Denise, who was going to sleep with him tonight, and neither were her clothes. Besides, he now knew for a fact that she was fully occupied tonight, just as she had been last night and this afternoon. This made him dress quickly, which in turn meant he had to make 3 attempts at tying an unfamiliar bow tie before he was ready to leave the room. Glancing at his phone, he realized that not only had he arrived 20 minutes later than he'd intended, but that the device's battery was down to a mere percentage, so he plugged it into the charger and left it on the bedside table on his side of the bed to check it later. Going downstairs, he consulted the table plan by the ballroom door and found his table was to the right of the stage, where a small jazz band was playing a set before the food was served, and half a dozen couples were already up and dancing. Finally, the name of the person who had sent the valentines appeared on the list. Vernon walked around the dance floor. As he approached the table, the beautiful Terry stood up, smiled at him, and walked around the table to meet him halfway. "You're late. The waiters warned us that appetizers would be delivered in a couple of rooms, and I was going to come by to get you," she smiled. "Well, I'm here now." Vernon smiled back at her. Without taking his gaze from her eyes, he added, as their hands came in contact and kissed her ass cheek, "You look absolutely stunning," after which he looked her over carefully. "Thank you, Vern. You're doing a fine job of tidying up yourself. Are you fully rested yet?" She smiled, answering his kiss with a peck on the cheek. "Yes, I slept with the innocence of an infant. However, I don't think my current thoughts will allow me to sleep in innocence anymore." "Let's dance, Vern," she whispered in his ear, her scarlet lips still close to his cheek. "I need to talk to you and the walls have ears." They walked hand in hand toward the center of the dance floor as the orchestra started up another slow romantic tune, and at that moment they turned to face each other. "Vern, I need to talk and you need to listen to me from beginning to end, without saying a word or leaving me. Can you do that, honey?" Vernon released his right hand from her grip to wrap his arm around her waist and pull her to him, cheek to cheek, then slide their legs together to the beat of the waltz. Terry pressed herself against him and they moved as one. "We're probably being watched, Vern, and what's happening this week and weekend has to do with someone wanting to hold something back to use against you." "Well, at the moment I'm holding you against me and Denise told me not to come." "Shh, don't talk, honey." He nodded silently. I'm here because I'm being blackmailed, Terry said. Of course, Vernon replied. I knew it was all set up and I know who's behind it. Don't go away, Vern. Please hear me out. Under normal circumstances, I would be happy to dance with you. You're a wonderful man and too nice for your wife to treat you like this. She's a stupid bitch. She threw her head back and looked him in the eye. I'm sorry, Vern. I'm so angry about what she's doing to you, to us, that's all. I know she's a stupid and selfish bitch, though she probably doesn't realize how stupid she is herself yet. Vernon spun her around and continued to dance with her. So why are you being blackmailed and what exactly have you been instructed to do to me? Well, my mom and I are being blackmailed for something we did together years ago. She won't tell me who she thinks the blackmailer is. She says she doesn't know exactly, but they know enough to ruin us both and put her away for years, and me possibly as an accomplice. I know who it is, Vernon said, clenching his jaws grimly. You know? She looked him straight in the eye. I wondered if your wife was trying to set you up, but I guess you don't usually do that sort of thing. No, I don't. I've always been loyal. I don't know any other way. I guessed who it was, and now I have proof. I assure you it's not Denise. She would be terrified of me finding out, so she wouldn't purposely wave it in my face. I suppose he wants more from me than just dancing together? Yes, there is sound and picture in the bedroom. I've already had a quick look around, but I don't have a clear idea of what I'm looking for. There are many ways to record bedroom scenes, Terry. One is a fisheye lens and microphone in an overnight bag with a battery sewn into the lining, operating via Bluetooth on the unfaithful spouse's cell phone and streaming to the cuckold's phone via an app. It can be set remotely or on a timer and responds to noise or movement in real time. There's always the risk of leaving such a device in the closet and relying solely on sound, but judging by how quickly my phone's battery is draining, I have something for my divorce attorney to work on. I know you're a lot smarter than me, so I thought you might be able to come up with something. So to get me off the hook, Vern, I need you to come up to the room with me. I'm going to try my best to seduce you, and you need to fight me off and walk resolutely out of the room, okay? Sure, I can do that, he smiled, but we need to make it look good. I'm going to have to try to make it look like I've tried everything. So I want you to relax, maybe have a drink with me, and then kiss and cuddle until I go too far and you swear you want to stay true to your loving wife. I'll try to drag you back in, strip you naked, even smear your tears, but you must resist and walk away to preserve your innocence and give the impression that I really tried my best to seduce you. I can do that. He paused. However, if you're not going to make love, why do you need contraceptives in the bathroom? I didn't say I objected to us making love, Vern. Contraceptives are a backup in case I misunderstand you and you turn out to be like every man I've ever gotten close to and take from me what I was forced to give. I've never had a real boyfriend, so I've never taken birth control pills. I want us to be honest if we're going to trust each other, Terry. I don't want to get hurt, and I don't want you or your mom to get hurt because of being involved with me. Tell me, why are you being blackmailed? She looked carefully into Vernon's eyes before she spoke, and tears came to her eyes. Yes, Vern, my love. I think I can trust you. I've never told anyone before. You can trust me. I'm going to assume this conversation never happened, including you telling me about your mother. Who is she, by the way? She works in human resources. Hilda Brandstone? Vernon suggested, and Terry nodded. She must have been helping you lay out the cards. Yes, she did help. She was a widow and remarried and then got divorced abruptly. So after that, she went back to her ancestral surname of Brandstone. That's why we have different surnames, because my father was Corporal John Jones, deceased. Sad. What did you and Hilda do that might have entailed blackmail? My father was in the army. He died overseas. And my mother remarried another soldier. A trusted family friend, she thought. When I was very young, he treated me terribly. She didn't know or suspect anything. When I dropped out of school, I left home too. I ended up living on the streets and was picked up by a man who turned out to be a pimp. Everything was fine at first, cold, proper food, and an affectionate lover who was kind to me at first. Then he started taking me and other girls under his control to businessmen's parties, lots of parties. He also treated me horribly. I called. The music stopped while the orchestra flipped through the music sheets. All the dancers rose to their seats, and a few more couples walked over to take their places on the floor. It was getting a little tighter. Terry lowered her voice even more when the music resumed. I once used his phone to call my mom, and tell her the best way I could to describe where I was. My mom watched the apartment for a day or two until she knew how things were going and what the pimp's usual habits were, and one morning when he opened the front door, she kicked him back into the room and used the bat to replace me. When she saw the state I was in and what he had done to me, I couldn't leave the apartment for days. She did it. We gathered up all the evidence of my existence, wiped it clean, and left that apartment without regret. In the intervening 9+ years, no one has ever caught up with us, and Josie and I still live quietly with my mom. But someone had to know who I was. Someone who lived here and had recently met my mom and me. I haven't told this story to anyone, Vern, but you're no ordinary person. You're not going to say anything about what mom did, are you? We never had that conversation, Terry. I know your mom as someone who strictly follows the rules. Well, she's ex-military too. She trains hard and can stand up for herself. You and your mom needn't worry, Terry. With what I have on Harry Cox and the mayor, it's in everyone's best interest to keep all secrets. The music started up again. The band leader announced that they were taking a break while the main meal was served. Do you want to go to your room, Vern? No, let's enjoy the food, and of course, I'd love to dance with you some more. We just need to be careful with the amount we drink so you can make it home when you're free. They started walking back to the table hand in hand. I booked another room here, Terry. It's smaller than the one Cox booked, but it's comfortable and no one will spy on what we do or don't do. I threw my overnight bag in there when I first arrived. So you knew it was a setup? I had a hunch. Look at me, Terry. No one sends an old man like me a Valentine's Day card and invites me to the ball and bedroom with all expenses paid and benefits. Don't belittle yourself, Vern. Any girl would appreciate you, especially tonight. You look like James Bond. You smell so nice and you're confident in how handsome you are without a hint of arrogance. And you seem more confident too, Vernon grinned. But I think you might have sensed while we were dancing how I feel about you. So I apologize for that. She giggled. No need to apologize, Vern. It's a great compliment. And even considering the awkward circumstances, I think I'm going to enjoy tonight. You have a double room. And would you like some company afterward, whether double or not? Yes and yes. Afterward. Vernon had long suspected that he had a rival in the struggle for his wife's favor. He became even more concerned when she became distracted when he tried to make love to her on Christmas Eve. Then, on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, a quiet time for counselors, the fictitious weekend courses in London she had announced proved too ridiculous for words. He began checking her appointments, for scheduled council meetings and attendance at them is a matter of public record. Identifying a rival proved more difficult. He had suspicions and a possible motive regarding Harry Cox, but he realized that while others in his department could be bribed, Vernon was adamant that he would never stoop so low. He hadn't had a chance to find proof until Denise announced her trip to London for Valentine's Day weekend. Internet searches had led him to a fisheye lens, and he'd easily adapted the app and device to her overnight bag. All that remained was to rely on luck or resort to the use of a microphone to get the evidence he needed to confront his wife and exploit her desire to preserve her reputation in public life through a quiet, uncontested divorce. Denise knew nothing about the Valentines, the cameras in Vernon's hotel room, or the blackmailed girl. When Denise told Harry Cox on Saturday night that it was over between them, and Cox told her how much he had invested in keeping her as his mistress and Vernon as a puppet he could pull the planning strings on, she slapped him across the face. A fisheye lens recorded the blows that Cox threw at poor Denise. As a recording of this brief incident was attached to his divorce papers, Denise was able to press charges, for which Cox was sentenced to 3 years in prison by Her Majesty's Court. Cox's obstacles continued when Larry and Vernon's previous boss in the city's planning department went to trial on corruption charges, and building inspections of all of Cox's buildings brought additional fees and fines that bankrupted him and his business, shortly after Cox's ex-wife brought him out. Some of his building practices were so scandalous for ignoring statutory duties of care to users, clients, and third parties that another decade was added to the prison sentence he had to serve concurrently. That same May, Denise lost the city council elections, so she never managed to become mayor for a second term. Her party also suffered collateral damage, losing the comfortable majority on the council that they had held for years. She miraculously managed to retain her seat on the parish council by a margin of 1 vote, even after 4 nervous recounts. However, 4 years later, her party has dropped her from the party ticket, and she is not sure she can afford to run as an independent candidate in the upcoming parish elections in May, especially as she remains without any support from her daughters and ex-husband. Cox's testimony prompted the Metropolitan Police to reopen the old murder case, but since there was no evidence that Terry had ever spent time in London, that Josie's DNA was a 0% match to that of the deceased pimp or Cox, that Hilda had an ironclad alibi, that the week-long vacation she took 9 years ago was spent with a former Army colleague in the Outer Hebrides, and that Cox was clearly a convicted fraudster and liar. The old case was closed as quickly as it was opened. Epilogue. February 14th, 5 years later. "Nice pink envelope, Vern," Terry said, leaning over to Vernon, who was sitting at his usual desk in the planning department. "It must be a Valentine. I'm surprised you resisted the temptation to open it for so long, dear." "You know, I always wait for you to come over so we can open the card together, Terry, my love, no matter how late you come over," Vernon smiled, turning the unopened item over in his hands. "I'm ready to open it now that you're here." He looked around first. "Where's Jack? Did I leave him in Mom's office?" "Josie left him in the waiting room. He was cranky because he was teething. I left him surrounded by a bunch of girls from the office fussing over him. And here I was wondering why the girls from the office disappeared together a few minutes ago. Met them and greeted them on my way up the stairs as usual." Vernon opened the card with roses on the front, a love message from his secret admirer. Inside and noticed the familiar 3 X's on the back of the card. Opening it, Vernon saw a voucher from the local gentleman's barbershop on the table. "Thank you, Mrs. Terry Harrison. I love you very much. Your hair is getting behind your collar, dear. It's about time you got a proper haircut. Thank you for my anonymous Valentine this morning. Dear man, a voucher for a full spa treatment for 2. Josie was beyond thrilled and took time off school. She's a teenager now and is ready to appreciate the benefits of being the beautiful daughter of a beautiful mom. Well, she got you a card too." She rummaged through her bag and pulled out a pastel-colored envelope. He opened it. It was a cute little card with roses and a big heart. The card was handwritten, "Thank you for being Mom's Valentine," and had too many X's to count. He couldn't help but smile and kiss his wife. "Hurry home after work, my dear," she breathed in his ear. "Jack and Josie are spending the night at Grandma's because my Valentine is going to be very lucky tonight." The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.